The Phantom's cargo bay was a cathedral of shadow and steel, its walls lined with weapon racks and diagnostic panels that glowed faintly in the dim light. Major Angel Ghost Mason stood at the center, her silhouette framed by the hulking form of her battle suit, a matte black exoskeleton that seemed to absorb the light around it. The suit hung in its docking cradle, a second skin waiting to be inhabited, its servos and joints gleaming with the precision of cutting-edge engineering. She ran a gloved hand along its chest plate, feeling the cold metal through her fingertips, a familiar ritual before the storm. "Echo, start the diagnostics," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. Her neural interface hummed to life in her skull, a faint buzz that prickled behind her eyes, and the AI's calm, synthetic tone responded. Initializing. Power core at 98%. Chameleon coding fully functional. Strength servos calibrated. Running neural sync now. A holographic display flickered up beside the suit, scrolling data in crisp green lines, and Ghost's augmented eyes tracked it with inhuman speed, parsing every detail. She stepped closer, pressing her palm against the suit's interface port. A soft click sounded, and tendrils of nanowire extended from the port, snaking up her arm to connect with the subdermal implants beneath her skin. The sensation was sharp, like ice threading through her veins, but she didn't flinch. She'd felt worse. The suit powered up with a low whine, its HUD blooming across her vision, targeting reticles, vitals, a 3D overlay of the Phantom's interior. "Sync complete," she muttered, testing the connection by flexing her fingers. The suit mirrored the motion, its claws curling with silent precision. "Neural link stable," Echo reported. "All systems green. 30 seconds of invisibility available, 2-minute recharge cycle. Recommend pre-mission calibration." "Later," Ghost replied, stepping back as the nanowires retracted. She rolled her shoulders, feeling the ache of her own enhancements. Muscles laced with carbon fiber threading, bones reinforced with titanium alloy. The suit amplified her, but the foundation was hers, carved into her body through years of pain. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to the first time she'd felt that pain. The memory hit like a shockwave, a sterile lab on Earth, the air thick with antiseptic and the buzz of surgical drones. She'd been 26, a decorated pilot with a death wish, volunteering for the Super Soldier program after a Cracks raid left her squad in ashes. The doctors had strapped her to a table, their faces blurred behind masks, and promised her power. "You'll be humanity's edge," they'd said. Then the needles came, hundreds of them, piercing skin and muscle, injecting nanites that burned as they rebuilt her from the inside. She remembered screaming until her voice gave out, the agony of her nervous system rewiring itself to handle 5 times human speed, the weight of metal fusing to her skeleton. Ghost blinked, the memory fading as the Phantom's hum brought her back. She wasn't that woman anymore. The surgeries had taken her apart and put her back together, stronger, faster, something more than human. She glanced at the suit, its chameleon coating rippling faintly as Echo ran a test cycle, the surface shifting from black to the cargo bay's gray steel and back again. 30 seconds wasn't much, but it had saved her life more times than she could count. She opened a panel on the suit's forearm, revealing the emergency medical systems, microinjectors loaded with stims and coagulants, a last resort to keep her fighting when flesh failed. Her fingers lingered there, tracing the scars on her own wrist where the implants had been grafted. Another flash. Waking in a recovery tank, submerged in viscous fluid, her body a patchwork of bruises and incisions. The lead surgeon's voice filtered through the haze. "You're the prototype, Mason. If you survive this, you'll be unstoppable." She had survived. Barely. "Echo, pull up the Cracks intel," she said, shaking off the past. The AI complied, projecting a hollow of a Cracks warrior, 3 meters of crimson-armored muscle, its shield shimmering around it. Known weaknesses, vulnerable to precise, high-speed strikes. Over-reliance on brute force. Sensor systems struggle with rapid movement. Ghost nodded, filing it away. The suit's strength servos could lift 1,000 kilos, more than enough to crack that armor if she hit the right spots. She stepped into the docking cradle, aligning her boots with the suit's maglocks. They clamped shut with a hiss, and the exoskeleton folded around her, plates sliding into place over her chest, arms, legs. The HUD flared brighter, syncing fully with her neural implants, and for a moment she felt the familiar rush, her senses sharpening, her reflexes coiling like a spring. She clenched a fist, and the suit's servos amplified the motion, denting a nearby crate with a casual tap. "Ready," she said, more to herself than Echo. The Phantom was closing in on Olympus Base, and the cracks were waiting. She'd trained for this, bled for this. The suit was her weapon, but she was the edge, humanity's ghost, slipping through the shadows to strike back. The Phantom's cargo bay vibrated faintly as the stealth ship adjusted its trajectory, engines purring under cloak as it closed in on Olympus Base. Inside her battle suit, Ghost felt the shift through the maglocks securing her boots to the docking cradle. The exoskeleton's HUD pulsed across her vision, overlaying sensor data with a countdown. 46 minutes until arrival. She flexed her fingers, the suit's servos whirring as they amplified the motion, and took a steadying breath. Time to see what this rig could do. Echo, run a full systems demo, she commanded, stepping free of the cradle. The suit's weight settled onto her frame, but her enhanced muscles bore it effortlessly. Titanium-laced bones and carbon fiber sinew doing their job. The AI's voice chimed in her mind. Activating chameleon coding. 30-second duration commencing now. The suit's surface shimmered, then vanished. Ghost glanced at a reflective panel on the bay wall and saw only the faint distortion of her outline, like heat rising off pavement. She moved, testing the limits, and the coating held as she darted between crates, her steps silent despite the suit's bulk. At 28 seconds, Echo warned. 2 seconds remaining, and the invisibility flickered out, leaving her matte black form exposed again. She nodded, satisfied. 2 minutes to recharge wasn't ideal, but it was enough for a quick breach. Strength servos next, she said, approaching a stack of supply crates, each marked with a weight stamp, 500 kilograms. She gripped the top crate's edge, her HUD highlighting stress points, and lifted. The servos hummed, a surge of power coursing through the suit, and the crate rose smoothly, as if it were hollow. She held it overhead, feeling the strain in her shoulders but none in the suit, then set it down with a controlled thud that dented the deck plating. 1,000 kilos, no sweat, she muttered. The crack's armor might be tough, but she could crack it with that kind of force. Neuralink targeting online, Echo announced without prompting. A reticle blinked into her vision, locking onto a dummy crate across the bay. Ghost's eyes flicked, and the system tracked instantly, painting a trajectory for a hypothetical strike. She raised her arm, and a low-powered laser, meant for precision cuts, fired from the suit's wrist, slicing a neat X into the crate's surface. Accurate to within a millimeter, Echo noted. Recommend pairing with high-speed movement for optimal effect. Ghost smirked faintly. Noted. The suit was a marvel, but it was her neural enhancements, 5 times human reflexes, that made it sing. She paced the bay, letting the HUD sync with her thoughts, testing how fast it could keep up. A flick of her gaze shifted the reticle. A twitch of her hand adjusted the laser's angle. It was seamless, like the suit was an extension of her will. All right, Echo, give me the crack's rundown again, she said, shifting gears. The AI projected a holo beside her, a rotating 3D model of a crack's warrior, its crimson armor glinting. Shields absorb sustained fire but falter under rapid, focused impacts. Joints and sensor hubs are vulnerable. Tactics favor overwhelming force over precision. Recommendation: exploit speed and stealth. Ghost studied the model, her mind already mapping weak points. The elbow servos, the neck plating, the glowing sensor nodes on the helm. Pull up Olympus Base, she added. The holo shifted, replaced by a detailed schematic of the colony. Domed habitats, sprawling labs, and the central plaza now likely a crack's stronghold. Echo highlighted the layout in layers. Ventilation shafts snaking through the structure. Maintenance hatches dotting the perimeter, power conduits pulsing beneath the surface. Primary infiltration points identified. Eastern maintenance hatch, minimal security. Ventral exhaust port, high risk but direct access to core systems. Ghost zoomed in on the eastern hatch, her augmented vision dissecting its specs. Dimensions, lock type, proximity to patrols. That's my way in, she decided. Small enough to slip through, close enough to the dome breaches for cover. She traced a path with her finger, the HUD plotting it in real time. Drop from the Phantom, use invisibility to cross the open ground, then breach the hatch before the recharge cycle lagged. Risky but doable. Hostage location? She asked. Echo adjusted the holo, pinpointing a cluster of thermal signatures in the cargo hold near the plaza. Approximately 200 civilians, guarded by rotating patrols. Crack's presence heaviest in Central Command and Power Core. Ghost's jaw tightened. 200 levs, pinned under Vorthak's claw. She'd seen the broadcast, his scarred face burned into her memory, and knew he'd execute them without hesitation if Earth didn't grovel. Factor in patrol patterns, she said, leaning into the hollow. Echo overlaid red lines, Crack's movements based on prior intel and the Phantom's long-range scans. They were predictable, arrogant, looping through the same routes with gaps she could exploit. Good, she murmured. They're cocky. That's my edge. She stepped back, the plan solidifying. Drop in, go invisible, hit the hatch, navigate the vents to the cargo hold. Speed and precision, her strengths, their weaknesses. The suit's medical systems could keep her going if she took a hit, but she didn't plan on getting caught. Echo, prep the Phantom for a low-altitude drop. I want to be in and out before they know I'm there. Course locked. Drop zone calculated. Suit power at optimal levels. Ghost exhaled, her breath fogging briefly in the bay's chill. The Cracks thought Olympus Base was theirs. She'd prove them wrong, one shadow at a time. The Phantom slipped through the void like a wraith, its cloaking field bending light and radar around its sleek hull as it approached Olympus Base. The stealth ship's engines thrummed softly. A vibration ghost felt through the cargo bay floor as she stood at the sensor station, her battle suit fully powered and humming around her. The HUD in her vision synced with the ship's external feeds, projecting a live view of the colony, or what was left of it, across her augmented eyes. She gripped the console's edge, steadying herself as the reality of the Cracks' occupation came into focus. The dome loomed ahead, its once pristine curve now a jagged ruin, fractured by drop pod impacts and leaking atmosphere in faint, silvery wisps. The Dreadnought-class warship hung above it, a crimson leviathan casting a shadow over the wreckage, its weapons arrays glowing faintly with latent power. Ghost's HUD zoomed in, picking out details the naked eye would miss. Scorch marks on the plaza, debris piled where labs once stood, and the unmistakable silhouettes of Cracks warriors patrolling the perimeter. Echo, enhance the feed, she said, her voice low but firm. The AI complied, sharpening the image until she could see the crimson armor glinting under the emergency lights, the plasma rifles slung across their backs, the arrogant swagger in their 3-meter strides. Patrol patterns consistent with prior analysis, Echo reported. 4-unit teams, 12-minute cycles, 30-second gaps at the eastern hatch. Sensors indicate no detection of the Phantom. Ghost's neural enhancements kicked into overdrive, her mind processing the data faster than any machine alone could manage. She saw the gaps in their movements, moments when a warrior turned a corner, when a sensor drone swept the wrong direction. Her augmented vision overlaid the patrol routes in glowing red lines, syncing with the 3D map she'd studied earlier. The eastern hatch blinked green in her HUD, a beacon of opportunity amid the chaos. 30 seconds to cross the open ground, cloaked in invisibility. Tight, but she'd worked with less. She stepped away from the console, pacing the bay as the Phantom leveled out, its altitude dropping silently to skim the colony's edge. The suit's servos whirred with each step, a reminder of the power at her command, but her thoughts were on the Cracks. They moved like they owned the place, because they did for now. Her eyes narrowed, tracking a patrol team as it stomped past a shattered habitat, one warrior kicking aside a child's toy with a grunt audible through the audio pickup. Arrogance. Sloppiness. She'd use it. Distance to drop zone? She asked, pausing mid-step. 5 kilometers in closing, Echo replied. ETA 8 minutes. Recommend final suit check. Ghost nodded, running a mental command through her neural link. The HUD flashed diagnostics. Chameleon coding charged, strength servos at peak, medical systems primed with stims and coagulants. Her heart rate ticked up slightly, 116 beats per minute, but the suit's biofeedback kept her steady, adrenaline sharpening her focus rather than clouding it. She clenched a fist, feeling the servos amplify the motion, and exhaled slowly. Through the sensors, she watched a Cracks warrior pause near the dome's breach, its helm tilting as if scanning the sky. Her breath caught for a fraction of a second. Had they pinged the Phantom? But the warrior turned away, rejoining its squad. Still blind, she muttered, relief threading through her tension. The cloak was holding, but she knew it wouldn't last forever. Once she dropped, it was all on her. Her mind churned, the neural implants spinning through scenarios at blinding speed. For guards at the hatch, maybe more inside. 200 hostages in the cargo hold, likely scared and slow to move. A power core she could sabotage if it came to that. The suit gave her 30 seconds of invisibility, 1,000 kilos of lifting power, and targeting precise enough to hit a dime from 50 meters. But the cracks had numbers, shields, and a warship that could glass the colony if she pushed too hard. This wasn't just a mission. It was a tightrope over a void, and every step would test her limits. "Echo, lock the drop coordinates," she said, turning toward the bay's exit hatch. Coordinates confirmed. "Drop sequence ready on your mark." Ghost stared at the sensor feed one last time, the cracks patrols moving like clockwork across the ruined base. Her enhancements had already memorized their rhythm, her plan clicking into place like a loaded magazine. She was faster, smarter, deadlier than they expected. But as the Phantom closed the final kilometers, a flicker of doubt brushed her mind. Not of failure, but of what she'd become to succeed. She shoved it aside. Doubt was human. She wasn't just human anymore. "Mark," she said, and the hatch began to cycle open, the void beckoning beyond.